The little recording thing still giggles me. Okay. Hello, everyone. You're listening to Those Are the Girls with Mallory and Friends. I'm Mallory,
I'm Victoria.
and we are changing culture and bringing back traditional values.
All right, guys. So today is an episode for all our boss babes and soon to be boss babes. If you are in the midst of finishing college, looking for a job, we just want to kind of provide you our tips and tricks of what we've learned over the last couple of years of working in life, like it's working general
Yeah.
and and just kind of what we've learned along the way, what it's like being a millennial in an office. I think a lot of people, it's a very different, I guess, like we come in with a very different mindset than like a boomer mindset. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah,
And
I
so it's
agree.
like, because it is very interesting, kind of like our work life balance compared to like the boomers' work life balance compared to what is between
Yeah.
millennials and boomers?
X. Is it X?
Z is the one right behind us. I guess it's Gen Z.
Yeah.
It's just like it's a very different, like there is like a difference when it comes to like age cultures, in my opinion. I mean, you
Yeah.
might, I don't know, because I work for a corporation. I won't name the place I work for, but I work for a corporation that is like an international company that employs like, I don't even know, almost 100,000 people, I think. They employ a lot of people. Like my division
Yeah.
alone, I think employs like 20,000. But yeah, so it's very interesting. Like usually like I'm the youngest in the room by 20 years to be honest, because I have the like I'm blessed with the opportunity to be working and essentially working with VPs and the president of our division. And not a lot of people my age get that opportunity.
And I want to pause for a second. And also the industry you're in is very older focused anyway.
Yes.
And I think that,
The
to commit,
industry, yeah, and
go
I
ahead.
can sorry to interrupt, but the industry I'm in, you generally stay in for your whole career because
Yeah.
it's such like a niche industry, and it's not like it's such a learning curve from um like I mean it took me a good year to learn, and that's kind of some of the advice we want to like provide you and know like you're not alone if you're like what is going on. Because I'll be frank, it took me a good year to learn the industry and then the next like a year to master it, if that makes sense. Because I've been with my company a little over 2 years. And I wouldn't say master it, but like it takes a year to learn and then a year to hone your skill.
To get more comfortable doing
Yes,
it.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I wouldn't, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
nowhere near master. You can ask my boss. But I'm really like starting to get my groove, understanding stuff. And it is like, I mean, our industry, it really is like a very like and it's a good industry to stay in. Like it's not going anywhere, to be honest.
Yeah. And I think that that's something too to consider when you are looking into careers and industries and things like that. If you are looking to do a career outside of politics, or because politics is going to always change and that's going to be
Yeah.
going back and forth. So I know a lot of people listening do politics, but if you want to do like a career in something, I guess, would it be more traditional? Would that, or non-traditional?
What I'm in.
Yeah.
See, I feel like
I feel like it's traditional in the
well
sense of
no,
like,
I think it's just how our industry is. My mom's job topped and like she's gone from like pharmaceutical sales to essentially selling people to do blood drives for the Red Cross to now working for a credit union selling or credit union association selling um their services.
okay.
So
Well,
like
I
my mom's been a salesperson her whole career, but she's gone from multiple different industries.
Okay. Yeah. So like I think that is something to consider, because to have um when you're looking at jobs, you're just like, oh, what should I do? I think finding something that is stable is just something to
Mm-hmm.
consider, because
But it
for
also depends on what you want too. To be
right.
honest, I wasn't looking for anything stable when I came into this job.
Right.
And I wasn't aware of honestly, I wasn't aware of the industry.
Well, and that's another thing too, is when you are looking at jobs, when you do these tests, I know they had us do a test in high school and in college.
Yes.
Look at the things that you may not have heard of. Like there's jobs. I mean, my job now, I mean, I feel like I knew what it was, but not really. But like not as much as like your job. Your job is completely like out of the water. It didn't even exist like 100 years ago.
Yeah. Let's go back real quick. Let's say a little bit, because I don't think we've said what you're doing, and we haven't really clarified exactly what I'm doing. I don't want to be like too ambiguous.
True.
Okay. So I work as a business analyst on a strategy team and I'm fine saying it, in the aerospace industry. That's what we were meaning. Like the aerospace industry is so, like, it's such a community. It really is. If that makes any sense.
I think also too, ladies, it'll be a good space to go into, because like if you're just like, I don't know what to do, I would look into it, because I mean, number one, there's not a lot of women in it. Yeah. Number two, it's job security in the community aspects, because it's such a niche. I think that like to me, that sounds like that'll be a good job. I just know my brain doesn't work that way, so I would never.
And it is such like a learning curve, and like there's no like books. I was talking to someone, I'm like, I'm trying to find a book to read to understand this industry, and I can't figure it out. Like, there's books to understand, like Netflix and the streaming platforms and the cell phone industry. There's all these articles, all of these books about pretty much every industry but the aerospace industry, because it's such like a niche. And like, I made a joke with someone the other day. I go, I could make millions selling a book on just the acronyms and the terminology in our industry alone. That it's just so specific, and that's why it was so hard for me to learn like my first year, like everything I could. I mean, especially being in a place like, essentially my role is to do research into what the market's doing, what are competitors, what trends and stuff like that, what the airlines are doing, stuff like that, in order to create our business strategy for our company, to figure out, okay, what are we doing in the next 5 years? And so essentially you get thrown in and expected to know all this stuff to help plan for the next 5 years, even though you have no idea what's going on in the industry to start with. And so that was like a really struggle for me, and I was definitely impatient on learning, I would say. And that I was like, why do I not know what everyone else knows yet? And I think there's a reason why people stay in this industry their whole careers, is because it is such a big learning curve. And it's very hard, like I said, with my mom went for multiple industries. It's very hard for her to come into our industry in like her 40s, 50s, never being in the industry before.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Like, it's really interesting too. Like, we see people coming, because like our division is very different from other divisions, and that I will not tell you how I do. But it's really interesting seeing people from even different divisions, still in the same company, still in the same and still in the aerospace, coming from a different division into ours to work, and they're like, I'm still over my head. So that's what I do. Now, tell us a little, and this is my first big girl job. And so essentially what I was looking for with my job is, I love research. So I was a triple major in undergrad in economics, political science, and mathematics. And so I still use essentially all of those in my job today.
Oh, wow. That's really good.
Because I have to understand what the markets are doing, financial trends, understanding geopolitical stuff, like understanding what's going on. Like, for example, I was trying to remember which country it was. In the Middle East, there's a country that it was like a no-fly zone. You couldn't fly over it. And so these airlines were having to fly around it. And that really affected their business.
Oh. And see, that's so fascinating because that's stuff, the average person is just not thinking about.
So what do
But
you do, Mal?
okay, so I am the constituent liaison for a congressperson in North Carolina. So I don't really want to say who it is. I love the person a lot and I'm very proud, but it just gets weird and like, working for the government, there's like weird rules. So I just want to keep it on the DL of who specifically. But if you really want to know, you can message me and I'll tell you. It's no big deal in that sense. But I'm the constituent liaison. So let me tell you about this position because everybody has one. The biggest thing is, let's say you need to you're having a trip to Jamaica next month and you realize you need to get your passport renewed. You can contact your congressperson, their district office, and they can help you mail your passport. So that's like the biggest way it'll affect you. Like that affects everybody. Well, pretty much everybody.
Everyone who's traveling out of the country.
Everybody who's traveled out of the country, it can affect you if you have a passport. And so, if you send your passport in the regular way, you have to send it in, I want to say like 6 months in advance. But if you need your passport within a couple of weeks, I think even within a month or two, you had to send it through your congressperson. My favorite story is someone got their passport 5 hours before their plane took off. It arrived at their house. So that's how it'll be applicable to you. Yeah, I know. When he called to tell me, I was like, wow, God bless. And there was another lady who her husband surprised her for an anniversary trip to Italy.
I'm already seeing this.
Yes. And thankfully she got hers in time. But yeah, so if you need passports and stuff like that, like this, that's where you go. You go to your congressperson. But they also do other things too. They help you with any federal agency. So the federal agencies I'm in charge of, the two big ones, because I'm in charge of a lot, but the two big ones that I do are IRS and USCIS, so immigration. Those are the two big ones. And basically I am the liaison, the person that goes in between. Like, you have a problem, I contact someone in the government agency to help you connect to get that problem fixed. And I love it because it's helping people. I mean, a lady like cried to me about how I've helped her, and I like put the phone on mute because I was crying too. So it's great. Now, I don't want to say that I am like this big career person because I just started this couple months ago. Like, I think it's like my 3rd month. But I have had jobs like part-time jobs in the past, and I tried to always work throughout college. Like, I've tried to always work. I will admit, like, I have friends that were making like $40,000 a year in like undergrad. I never had a job like that. I had a job that would like cover food and like one night a month going out.
Sebastian actually did that working fast food. He like worked his way up from minimum wage to manager in like a year and was making like 40,000 in college.
Well, that's how my friend did it. She worked for Cookout. She like skyrocketed at Cookout. But that's just not an industry that I was interested in. And I liked pretty much all of the jobs that I had. So before I had this job, well, I'll start off in undergrad. So my sophomore year and junior year, I believe, I worked, no, just sophomore year, because junior year, I was at the Supreme Court. So sophomore year, I worked at the desk. So I was the person, hi, welcome to Seton Hall. Yes, we do actually have bathrooms like every other building over there. I don't know why that question annoyed me to no end. People be like, do you guys have a bathroom? No, our building does not have a bathroom. You have to go someplace.
There's no bathrooms on campus.
Right. There's no bathrooms on campus. There is the woods right there. You just go back there.
We give we give our students chamber pots in their dorm rooms. No bathrooms. No running water. We're just old chamber pots. They dump them out the window in the mornings.
But yeah, so I did that, and that was fun in the sense it was like customer service. And then so my junior year, the first semester I did Supreme Court, and then that second semester I just hey, mommy, can you put $20 in my account? And then the next year after that, and then the year after that, I did Kumon, which I absolutely loved. But Kumon's only twice a week, and it's not raking in the dollars. And then in grad school, I worked at the law library, basically doing customer service as well. I just checked people in, found books, dusted things. It got really interesting. We had a ring of book thieves, and then we had a squirrel in the ceiling. So one day I'll have to tell those stories because those were crazy. And then I did Students for Life, action, like a bunch, different part-time stuff for them. All that to say, my path wasn't as straight as Victoria's, and I didn't
my path wasn't straight though. I will say that because I did do that one semester PhD in grad school, and then was like,
fair.
I was like, oh, this isn't for me.
Fair, but you've had this job for like 2 or 3 years, almost 3, right? Yeah. So like, it still wasn't, because like, and also too, I started this in April, which is like in the middle of the year, as opposed to like most people start theirs in like August or January.
Yeah, true.
So that's what I mean. And but it got me to where I am. I forgot the point I was making.
Well, we're saying like what our backgrounds is. So we'll
go ahead.
Continue on, because first by segment, what advice do you have for people looking for a job right now? Like how were you able to get your job, and what advice do you have people looking for a job right now? Because I know there's a lot of college graduates that are trying to find that job.
Yeah. So hot take. There's a lot of jobs right now, but if 2 things. There's like Cookout and Chick-fil-A, all those places
there's a lot of jobs in the retail industry right now. There's not a lot of jobs for entry-level college graduates.
That's what I was going to say. So hot take, it's okay if you spend all that money to go to Chick-fil-A, to go to school, and you have a degree in neuroscience or something like that, and you haven't found a job yet. It's okay I personally think it's okay not to take the Chick-fil-A job. Now, if it's been 2 years, okay, maybe take the Chick-fil-A
I disagree with that a little bit, because I think it shows a lot about your character, that even though it just shows that you're a fighter, in my opinion. Because it's like, okay, like you're struggling to get a job, but you know what? I'm going to work this job and make money until I can't find that job.
Okay, so then I'll push back on that. I think what would be a little bit better, you get an unpaid internship at Neuro, blah, 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 something lower level.
But that's a little bit different, because I will say, my little sister's going to do this right now. She's decided she's going to work at her summer job from last year, because you also have to think there's not a lot of internships open right now.
Fair. I just think you should stay I think you should stay in your industry.
Yeah.
If you are not planning to be a business manager of a Chick-fil-A or something like that, I don't think that you should do the Chick-fil-A. So I think, for example, I think it's better to take a lower paying or like an unpaid something that is going to put you in the same trajectory than take some of these random once you have your college degree.
Well, let's rephrase this. I think this is where we can find the compromise. I think if you can get an internship in your industry, do that. If you can't, get that job working for Chick-fil-A or Starbucks or whatever until you can find your job.
Yes. And so here's the other caveat too. Here's the problem. Sebastian just casually walked by.
He's taking the dogs out.
Here's the only thing though, like, for example, if I worked a full-time, so like I'm just imagining I don't have a job right now, so I say I'm gonna work the full-time 9 to 5 at like a retail something. The reality is like, and it could just be because I'm getting older, but like you're going to be too tired and like you can get distracted that you don't end up in the area. So that's the only reason why like I kind of push back on that too. Like I think
I'll rephrase my claim.
Okay.
Not full-time, part-time. Because
Okay.
that's why, and like you and I are also, not only do we have our jobs, but we're also going down like an entrepreneurial side.
Yeah.
And all the podcasts,
See, I say
like,
do that too. I say that do more of that than just take
yeah.
the
Well,
random
that's what
retail
all the
job.
podcasts say. It's like, you know what? If you really want to go like dive like head first, I know this Getting Confidential is big on this. She said she worked multiple jobs on top of having her blog in order to make her blog her like main hustle.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think is like, okay, like,
And then see, I see that different though. I agree with you on that. So I see that different. If you want to do entrepreneur stuff, working at, Chick-fil-A, or I keep saying Chick-fil-A. I think I want Chick-fil-A. But like Chick-fil-A or retail, if you want to do entrepreneur, I think that's all fine. I think taking wherever you can get the money, wherever you get the money legally and morally, then get the money.
well, but it's the same concept, don't you think? Like, you want the entrepreneurship to be your full-time job. You want,
but like,
you want to get a full-time job. Like, you spend that extra time, like you work until you can get that full-time job.
I don't know. I
find like, I mean, people have to pay rent, people have to pay bills. I know, like,
oh yeah, for sure.
Like, I know, like, I mean, a lot of people are able to go home and like be with their families until they can get a job. But if it takes you months to find a job, I know my sister's been looking for months now.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of
what's her major?
Biology and math. You would think.
Right. Yeah, you would think.
Yeah, you would think with like COVID and all that, because she wants to work in a research lab, but people just don't want to hire students that lack experience.
Yeah. So once again, though, like, I think that if she worked, like, I feel like you can find a job that's in your industry. Nothing like, and once again, like, but I think once again, entrepreneurship is different because I think you should just find wherever you can get the money, legally and morally. Like, you've added those caveats. I think that's fine. But like neurosurgeon, if you went to school to be a neurosurgeon, I don't know why you wouldn't have a job yet.
That's completely different. You'll find a job as a neurosurgeon.
Well, I would think you would find a job at. Well, I would think you would find a job researching biology, though. Like, I'm shocked you didn't find one. I feel like that, engineering and finance are like, you're always going to have a job for that. But there's people who don't have those jobs.
They don't want to. They don't want to do the training because they don't want people in because of COVID in there doing training.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, anyway,
we're getting off topic. Okay, what advice do you have?
What advice? Okay, so
with your and like tell briefly about your hiring process.
Okay, so the best advice, I think the most important advice, the thing that matters the most is networking. Every job, except for one, and it was a fluke, that I've ever gotten has been because I knew somebody. And not like, oh, you know somebody, but like.
No, that's how, like, I will say my job, and I'll explain mine a little bit, but like all the jobs like my mom has gotten was from networking. Not saying that she wasn't qualified, but it always helps you get a foot in the door.
Because let me tell you guys the truth. The reality is most, not all, most jobs post on Indeed and all that so they can say that they're looking for people. They're not really going to get someone from Indeed. They're going to get Bob, who's worked at the company for 4 years, friend who was highly recommended, that has a good resume. That's the other thing too. A lot of times you still have to be good because people don't, because you're going to make your friend look bad if you're not a decent hire. You're going to make your friend look bad, and they're not going to waste time and money on someone hiring someone.
I will say, if you and someone else have identical resumes, but they know someone in the company, they're going to pick that person over you.
Absolutely. So networking is the biggest thing. You have to, and I think that's something that people forget, especially in college. You have to meet new people. You have to make connections at your internships, at things. The job I got is because a person I go to church with, I was expressing how I didn't have a job. I just really needed a stable income, because I did the stuff with Students for Life. I have my side business and stuff like that, but I just need a stable income. And he was like, well, shoot me over your resume. And then he was like, well, who do you want me to give it to? I was like, literally anyone that's hiring. I will do anything at this point in the political field. So then he sent it over, and then that's how they're like, oh, this resume is fire. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I've been telling people for years. And then then they finally, someone was like, oh yeah, we need her. So like, that's the biggest advice I have. It's just like, make sure you're networking and talking to people. The second thing is like, your interview is so important. And it's not, and I think that because of society is so lax, and how do I know this? Just from conferences, not necessarily the one that just happened. We'll talk about that in another episode, but like just conferences in general, like being there and seeing like how business attire is like a crop top and a short skirt and then a blazer. Like people have really laxed on that. And because of that, when you wear an actual like, dress or a suit, I'm not a suit girl because Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris frighten me. I just don't want to look like them, and so I don't do suits.
I love a good power suit.
I'll wear a dress. I'll wear a bright colored dress to the day I die. But yeah, so if you wear a suit or a dress, and if you are speaking articulately, if you're together, that goes a long way. And if you have your personality, I know that in grad school, we would have like these little breakout sessions, and they'd give you like free lunch. So I went to like all of them, especially because right before I had that job, the sis was struggling. And one was on like career and being hired. And they said that by the time you get to your second interview, it's not even really about what you've done, who you are. You're basically hired. They just want to see if you fit in with the company. So be yourself. I think that's so important. I think sometimes we think that we should sound X, Y, and Z. And like, obviously I have a professional persona, for lack of a better word, than I do like here. Like I wouldn't talk to my boss like, yeah, girl, you sis. Like I would never do that. That's not appropriate, but you can still be yourself. For example, she needed a raincoat, and if you see my raincoat, it's bright pink, and I offered her my raincoat, and she was like, and I was like, oh, is it not your style? And we laughed and joked about that. Like you can still be yourself, but in a professional setting. And I just think those two biggest things are like, your interview is so important, and then networking. That is like I don't know how else to get a job. Like people ask me, especially since I finally got, I'm like, I don't know how to say other than like, you have to know somebody.
Yeah.
You have to know somebody, especially in this day and time, because like Vic and I were saying, retail and restaurants and fast food places are hiring, but it's kind of hard to get a job, like a career. Like jobs, if you just need a job, sure, get one. And there's nothing wrong with having a job, especially if your goals are entrepreneurship. And we can talk about entrepreneurship and how it's different than corporate, because it's so different. But anyway, so we can talk about that in a little bit. But the career wise, if you want to find a career, you have to know somebody. So how do you meet people? School, through networking, through school, honestly, through social media too. Getting to know people on a personal level. Now, don't just like random, I followed you for 2 days, can you tell your boss? Don't do that, but like, the relationships you've developed, like through friendships. I was reading this book that I think we should all read together one day, and it's called The Defining Decade, and it's about like making the most of your 20s. And she said in the book, she was like, the people who are going to get your job aren't your friends. People who are going to get your jobs are your acquaintances. And that's 110% too. I'm thinking of the 3 jobs that I've had most recently. Last summer, I interned with the RNC. How did I get that? Larry. Yeah, he just texted me.
Larry was the one that helped you with that.
Yeah, he literally texted me one day. I was like, do you want to intern for the RNC? And I was like, yeah. And like, but Larry, I wouldn't say he's like my best friend or anything. Like I haven't gone out with him or anything like that. So like, though, like RNC, so Students for Life, that I got from my friend Titus, who I did a couple things with him, and he was like, you know what, you seem like you would be good at X, Y, and Z. Apply for this. And then, like I just said, my latest job I got from someone I go to church with that I was just casually talking with. Wouldn't say he's my best friend or anything like that. Never went out with him either. Yeah. Like all of the people who are going to help you are going to be acquaintances. Now, once again, don't, not straight up strangers, but acquaintances. And also too, letting people know that you need a job. That was one thing I had to work on out of humility, because I feel like I come off so together, and I'm not. But I do like to. I don't.
But you
I'm
also. But I will say too, you have also been working on your master's.
That too.
So it wasn't like you just didn't have a job because you didn't have a job. Like you are technically still in school.
Yeah, but I still felt, I don't know. I felt like I wasn't.
I will say you should not be beating yourself up. Okay, like I said, you're still getting your master's, and it was in the middle of COVID. You had a job, but then lost it because of COVID.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like you were like you don't need to beat yourself up over that. But I will because we need to move on from this topic.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Also mention LinkedIn is accept anyone that like accept anyone. Like it's not like Facebook or Instagram's like, oh, I don't know you, I'm not gonna accept you. No, you accept everyone on LinkedIn because you never know when you need that connection. Secondly, do not treat it like a normal social media account. You don't need to be like, hey, look how cute my dog is. No, it's LinkedIn. This is drives me crazy.
Doing that.
Yes, LinkedIn is like people on LinkedIn started treating it like Facebook. No, this is for professionals. You provide professional updates like, hey, I just started my master's. Or hey, I just finished my MBA, looking for a job in consulting, like stuff like that. That's what
I just wrote an article for the Blaze.
Yes,
my article, stuff like that. Yeah, that's a good point. We should do
because in my opinion,
about etiquette.
Your social media, for the most part, like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, that is not meant for you to talk about your professional life. Those social media platforms are meant for you to brag about your personal life. LinkedIn is a place for you to brag about your professional life.
Yes. And I think, and then we can move on, but another thing too is bragging. Like, I know that
humble brag.
Like when people ask you, like, have you blah, blah, blah? Yes, I actually blah, blah, blah. Like, for example, what I said about the Supreme Court. Yes, say those things. These things are good because it shows your strengths, and it shows like those, especially if you worked at some place, like, for just an example, like the Supreme Court, that needs to be talked about as much as possible.
Yep.
Maybe not to your family, because I know my brother is like, okay, we get it, you did the Supreme Court, but in a professional setting, those things should come up appropriately though too, but it definitely should come up on your resume. You don't say,
hi, my name's Mal, I interned for the Supreme Court, like, no.
Especially when it was so don't do that. But when people are talking about your background, like, oh, what are some things that you've done, I did bring up the Supreme Court because quite frankly, that's an amazing thing to have on my resume.
That's like a once-in-a-lifetime internship.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And honestly, it's a good conversation starter too, because then we can talk about the Supreme Court, we can talk about people's opinions on different decisions, and all of this is part of the networking. And I know that networking can be overwhelming. I think we should do a video, like a YouTube video on networking possibly.
Well, that's what I was thinking too. Like, we can do one on networking and then one on LinkedIn. I think I have a person from LinkedIn that or someone who's like an expert in LinkedIn that we can come on to kind of help us with our LinkedIn profiles. It's actually one of my sorority sister's dads, and he came to my sorority to help us do our LinkedIn accounts.
Okay.
But anyway, real quick, my hiring experience is a bit different than Mal's. So what I did, my mom told me that for women, we usually do not apply for a job unless we're 100% qualified.
That's true.
Men do it if they're like, even if they're 50% qualified. So what I did, and I took that advice to heart, I applied for jobs that I thought were interesting that, you know what, I may not be 100% qualified, but let's just give it a try. I applied to over 50 jobs on Indeed. I heard back from 5 to 10 I interviewed for.
Yeah, I believe
and that's normal.
Yeah.
And so don't expect like, okay, like I applied to these 10 jobs, I should hear back from 6 for an interview. No, like if you looked at my percentage, that's like what 10 to 20% I heard back from. Like that's crazy low. And so
that's normal.
But that's normal. That's normal.
Okay.
And I will say too, at the company I am at, one of the guys that interviewed me was a guy I went to high school with that I didn't even realize.
Oh.
So
did you realize that when you got there?
Yeah, I was like, oh my God. And he was like the other analyst. Like me and him were like the same position, essentially. There's 2 of us.
And honestly, he probably put in a good
that
word
helps
for you.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying, you guys. Don't burn bridges. This is just sorry, quick tangent. Do not burn bridges.
Never know, you might have to recross it.
Never know when someone can help you, when you can help someone. Like, do not burn bridges. You can definitely understand putting up boundaries, because there's going to be people that you meet that you're going to be like, ugh, not the biggest fan of them, but do not burn that bridge.
Yep. All right, so we've gone through the hiring process. We've gone through LinkedIn. What advice do you have someone that has just started a job? They go, oh my God, Mal, I am starting my first job. What advice do you have for me?
Okay. What advice for new job starters?
I'll start real quick.
Yeah, you go.
I know someone gave me this advice. They go, ultimately, your work is to make your boss look good. Mm-hmm. So you need to focus on make sure your boss looks good, your team looks good, and your company looks good. That entails making sure you're dressing professionally, you're talking professionally, you're doing the best work you can provide. And your ultimate goal is to make your boss, your team, and your company to look good. It's not about you. And because if you do want to move up in the company, your boss is the one that determines that. Your boss determines your raises. Your boss determines, heck, if you keep the job or not. Mm-hmm. So in the end, and I mean, it's just facts. In the end, you're there to make your boss, your team, and your company look good.
Mm-hmm. I echo that, because that's similar to what I was going to say. So instead of that, I'm going to say this. Ask questions. Ask. If you don't understand something, if you are not sure about something, just go ahead and ask. I know that my supervisor is probably annoyed with me at this point, because I will ask a question, and I've always been like this. I'll ask a question in a heartbeat if I don't understand it.
Yep.
But it's so much better to ask the question to clarify than it is. Now, don't be annoying, but it's so much better to ask the question to clarify than to spend all this time doing something and then turns out it's not right.
I've done that. Yeah. Me and my boss had a misinterpretation. And I did a whole thing. He goes, no, that's not what I meant for you to do. And I go, I just spent this whole day doing this.
Yeah.
And it's because I didn't clarify.
Yes. Always clarify. Always ask questions. And also, too, I think that when you do things like that, it shows that you are trying to learn. And essentially, your supervisor, your boss, whoever, want someone who is going to constantly be learning. Also, last other piece of advice, I just thought of this. I drove to work the very first day, or that Sunday before I started work, because I wanted to make sure I got the route right.
Oh, good point. I think I did that too.
And I think everyone should do that. And I told my supervisor that, and she told like the congressperson I worked for, and she was so impressed. Like, you would have thought I said that I met Donald Trump and then like got his blessing. Like, that's how she made me feel. She was so happy and impressed. So now I'm going to always do that. And I also drove to another office. I worked outside of the office, and I needed to work there on a weekend, and I wasn't sure of the route. So I did that during one of the weekdays that they allowed me to. I did that as well. And that was super impressive. So like tiny things like that. And also, too, the reality is you might not know where you work, because the address on my you might not know where you work, so it'll be just good to do that.
And I will add that too, onto that too, be on time, if not early. It looks very bad if you show up late to a meeting. The other thing I would add too, and this is something I'm learning with my MBA, that you need to make sure you set expectations early. And I know this is more coming from like a manager side, but you need to talk with your manager, be like, okay, like, do you expect me to be here exactly at 8 a.m. sharp? Or like, because some managers are very strict, like you have to be here at 8 a.m. and you're working till 5 p.m. You get an hour off from 12 to 1 for lunch, and like that's it. Or is it kind of do it on my own time? Like, not do it on my own time, but like as long as I get my work done. And it's like you need to talk to your boss ahead of time. So, okay, what are your expectations? How do you work well? What advice do you have for me to work well? What do you expect from me to do? Because I know with my position, I've had a few different bosses already, And this is something I feel like I didn't realize was not required, but highly recommended in order to have a good functioning team that I really wish we had done, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I agree. And also too, like your coworkers, and this is going to sound
Yes.
super callous, but this is how I feel. I love all my coworkers. I try really hard not to get too familiar with them because your coworkers are your coworkers, especially in a career. You know, your friend Shelly that works with you at Chick-fil-A, yeah, you guys can probably go out and get drinks together, but I really think that like your coworkers are your coworkers.
Yeah.
You can still be kind and courteous. Don't be callous. Like I honestly, I
Well,
like
you
all my
could still be
coworkers.
friends with them, but
There
understand,
has to be a boundary.
yeah, and understand this is just like your friends. It's like, okay, you know, you have classroom friends that you're friends with them in the classroom, but you never hang out with them outside of the
Yeah,
classroom.
yeah,
Same thing
yeah,
with coworkers.
yeah. And
Now, I will
also,
say I think it's fine being close to coworkers that are on a different team than you.
yeah,
That's
I think,
because I'm very close with our HR department because they sit next to us at work. We're not in the same team, but I'm good friends with them. I'd go to lunch with them.
yeah. And I think it's okay to go to lunch with your coworkers. I just think you also have to remember two things. Like, and this is just advice just in general. Business is business.
Yeah.
So whatever happens, let's say, so part of the reason why I'm thinking of this is like I really, really like my supervisor. Like honestly, I could see us being friends, but I try to be as professional. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
chat about stuff, but I try to be as professional as possible because at the end of the day, like I said, business is business. And if something happens and she is over me and she has to, you know, reprimand me, she has to
It's
something
like
like
a
that.
parent-child relationship. Like
Yeah.
you can be close, but like in the end, like you can't like a parent can have that best friend relationship with a child because in the end they still have to discipline the child.
Right, exactly. So you just have to make sure you have a level of like understanding businesses and not taking things
Mm-hmm.
personally. And then last thing, and you have to figure out how to balance this mindset. But I do try to remember this: like your people on the same level as you, they are your friends to an extent because the reality is, if someone needs to get fired, it's going to be one of you. So you need to
Mm,
always be doing your best work
yep.
no matter what. And you just can't, I don't think that you should be slacking off in any way. And I think that you should just have that level of like, you know what, I'm kind of in competition with this person,
And I
which
will say
I
that's
hate
something
that.
I did not learn until my counterpart had left.
Yeah.
Like that is something that I'm still learning. Like, and I will say too, it's important that you go above and beyond in your work. Don't
Yes.
just do, okay, this is what my boss told me to do. Like, because that's what I did. And I'll be frank, it didn't help me out at all.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to learn that. It's like, look, like when I do a project, I do everything my boss tells me to do. And then I sit and look at it and go, what would my boss say if he saw this right now? And it's funny, I've like told Sebastian, I was like, I know how my boss is like voice in my head going, up, that doesn't look great. Like I already know what he's gonna say. And so I'm like, okay, let's try to fit like fixing this before he sees it. Can you hear my dogs?
A little bit, a little
Did you
bit. I
just
know
see
they
Phoebe
just,
running in and out?
yeah, she just wants to be a part. I get it, Phoebe. I get it.
Her and Kennedy are doing laps right now.
Okay, just
She's
getting the
having her little
exercise
spaz
in.
moment.
Okay, okay.
But I will say too, so this is my last piece of advice because you're not working on Zoom. I'm working on Zoom. So
Yeah, give
my
some
boss
Zoom
told me this.
advice.
So I did not have an office in my last department. Because I was working in my office, like I was working at the office. So when we transitioned to working from home, I had to essentially get an office. And I had my office, my desk against the wall with my camera facing like our kitchen table. And I was like that for a couple months. And I wish I was told up front that it didn't look good. So I got told from my boss that hey, people do watch, people do notice the clutter in the background. If they see the clutter in the background, it makes you look disorganized. So in
Mm-hmm.
the like you need to make sure that in like these Zoom meetings, like your backdrop looks good. So what I ended up doing is just flipping my desk around to my backdrop facing the wall with my bookshelf in the back, kind of what it is now. She's crying. I don't know why she's crying.
Oh,
Phoebe. Whatever. Okay. Going back to it. But he's like making sure, like, yeah, like you are working from home. Like, yeah, you do only have like a couple meetings, but you do need to look nice in those meetings. Like, you don't have to look like crazy nice, but like honestly, what I have on right now will be fine. Like, because I know like when I was just like wearing like hoodies, or like I think I would wear like a workout top and put a sweater over top, and it just didn't look professional. So I ended up buying some like casual tops to wear, essentially.
Yeah.
That didn't look like workout clothes. And that's and it was a lot better. So it did make, I will say, like with students, make sure your background doesn't look distracting or look bad. That was the big advice I got, because it does show, like, kind of like, you know how like dress how you want, like what you want your job to be. Make sure your background is what you want your job to be.
Professionalism. And that's what we were talking about earlier too, even with your clothes and with your mannerisms with your boss and your supervisors. It's the professionalism. Yep. And I would love to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I will say too, I wrote a blog post for that political couple about what to wear as a political wife. And it's the same advice I give there is what I would wear for the office. What would Kate Middleton wear? I would ask myself, what would Kate Middleton wear? If Kate Middleton does not like, would she not wear this? Then you don't need to wear it. Now, it's okay. Like, I mean, some offices, like, you do need to like look at the culture. Is most people wearing jeans? Then that's fine. But don't wear tear up jeans. Wear like dark jeans with a nice blouse and some flats. Like, that's perfectly fine. But if you want to be president, CEO of that business one day, you need to look the part.
Yeah, I agree. And it's it reflects well on you, because how you look outwardly, unfortunately, people judge that, and that reflects on how people think your performance is going to be.
Yep.
As well. Do we have any questions about entrepreneurship?
Yeah, just
or do you want to do a separate episode? Okay.
Well, let's make that a separate episode. We've gone on a while.
Okay.
We'll just make that, because I know like the entrepreneurial journey is very different from working in an office. So
very different.
I think we could go on and talk a lot about that, and how we both got to be entrepreneurs is actually a really interesting story.
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe we could have that just be a separate episode.
My last piece of advice, as you guys know, I'm getting my MBA right now. When your company says, like, I think it's important when you go interview for a company, go, will the company pay for extra schooling? Ooh, I think that's big, because I think we're getting to the point where you have to have a master's eventually. And you need to ask about, part of the benefits is, does the company pay for extra schooling? Would they pay for an MBA? And and I mean, if you don't want it, that's fine. But if that's something you want, if you think you would want in the future, you need to ask if your company will pay for that. Secondly, when your boss tells you, make sure your boss is aware you want to get your MBA. But then when they tell you that it's the time, I think you should start looking at MBA programs. Do it, regardless of where you are in your life. Dude, my boss told me, he goes, we're going to talk about your next 5 years with this company, and I think it's time for you to start looking at MBA programs. And then within 2 months, I had started one. And even though I'm like, I was not planning on getting an MBA right now. I'll be frank with you. I was going to wait until after the 22 election to. Oh, wow. Yeah, I wasn't planning, because there's a lot
going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the 22 election.
Yeah.
And I'm just not knowing. I know how busy we were in 2020, not knowing what's going to happen in 22. So I was going to wait until after 22 and then probably start the spring of 23. My boss is like, I think right now it's time for you to do it. I go, well, I'm just going to have to figure it out.
Good on
we haven't been on, like, I think at the time I was only doing, like, I was busy working 40 plus hours a week on top of doing my small business, on top of doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Honest to God, I did not have time to add something else to my plate, but you know what? They told me to do it, so I did it.
Yeah. And I think that's a good trait to have in general. Just a side note to add in, if you need to get something done, you just go ahead and do it.
Yep.
And I'll be honest with you guys, tonight I was kind of tired and didn't really want to do this podcast. But I did it. Like, there's just certain times in life, and this is just like life advice in general, where like you just have to do something. If it might not be what you want to do, but you just have to do it.
Yep.
That's good, Vic.
Yep. The last thing I have, and we'll do a blog post on this. What books, podcasts, or other resources would you recommend to someone who is new in their career?
Okay.
That one book you were mentioning to me.
Yes, but also too really quick. I wanted to say, dang it. What was the advice you just gave?
About just jumping in head first and getting stuff done.
Jumping in head first. There was one other thing I wanted to add. Was
it about doing a master's or?
Oh, it was like it's about career.
Doing something and when you're not ready.
I think it might have been about like I know what I was gonna say. Prioritizing too, that's another thing. Mm-hmm. So we'll do this in the entrepreneur episode, but like as an entrepreneur, as someone who has like lots of dreams and like I do a lot of extracurricular activities. Yeah. The reality is, almost every night I have some sort of political something. But the reality is like my job is paying the bills. Yep. I love the political stuff I do, but if I just can't do a political thing that I'm doing for free, I give the county I'm in a lot of free labor. If I can't do that, then I just can't do that. Yep. And I think that's just one thing everybody should just be cognizant of and like realizing your priority. Right now, if you have bills to pay, that should probably be your priority. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean let everything else slack, but like if you have to pick what I read in this book, this will be a good transition. So one of the books I would recommend is She Factor. Now, they've kind of I actually found them out at YWLS from 2019, and they've kind of strayed away. Like the other
book
day,
or a podcast?
It's a book and a podcast. The podcast is good. I'm actually going to send you the one I listened to today. Okay. I'm going to send you that to you earlier, but the book is really good. And like I said, it strayed a little bit. So I hesitate recommending it because the other day she was on her page doing like saging and like talking about like healing, all the extra stuff. But I will say that doesn't take away from the facts that the knowledge that I learned from these books was important. Like I really, it helps me a lot, like reading that book, the She Factor book. So the lesson I learned in the She Factor book is so I'm a dreamer. Like they have like a silhouette thing. You take the test and see like the type of person. It's same thing. All the personality tests are the exact same thing. So I'm a dreamer. So one of the things I have is like I want to do a bajillion things. I am doing a gajillion things. And when you do that, you need to prioritize. So what they taught us was make a list of all the things you want to do and then order them of the importance. And then when something happens, see what order it fits in. Or let's say, for example, I would love to go to Key West, Florida next weekend for a girls' trip. This is random. For a girls' trip, spontaneous. My friend invites me. I want to do that. Okay, I'm looking at my list of things. My job, those other girls, some of the political stuff that I do, love life. These are my priorities. Okay. Also, too, it's going to cost me $1 bajillion. Okay, I look at this thing that I want to do. Does it line up with what I have? Nope, can't do it. So like that, and I'm a very much like structure person. Like I need structure. So that has helped me a lot. It's just understanding your priorities. So She Factor, I would recommend. The book, I wouldn't recommend getting into the whole vibe. Some of the podcast episodes are really, really good though. You just have to use discernment. Unfortunately, that's one thing that I would love to figure out how we can work on. I feel like a lot. I'm in even some career, like entrepreneur, Facebook groups, and they're all about manifesting, using your crystals, the moon, all that stuff is aligned now, and it's so antithetical to the gospel that it's just so frustrating. I cannot find any Christian women that are like entrepreneurs that talk about like, anyway. So She Factor, use discernment with that, but that book was really good. The Defining Decade is really good. And then I haven't started it, but I do have it. I need to start it. And it's called Why Good Girls.
Nice Girls Still Don't Get the Corner Office.
Yes, Nice Girls Still Don't Get the Corner Office. That book I came to me highly recommended. And like I would read that one. But She Factor, I read She Factor all the way through. Really good. The Defining Decade is really good. I hadn't finished it yet, but I'll like to the tip that I told you guys about your acquaintances, that was in there. And then it talks just a lot about, and also the tip about the like your job. Like this girl wanted to be an animator, but said she was going to be a barista till she was like 28, which, you know, stuff happens, that's possible. But the lady suggested, well, how about you work in the studio, the animation studio, doing X, Y, and Z, like at least get your foot in the door. And she just talks about like how, you know, we are the generation that wants to go everywhere, explore, and do stuff. And none of those things are bad, but make sure it's going to be positive things that are going to keep you on your path, that are going to help you in the future. So those 3 books I would recommend.
Yep, that's good ones. One I recommend is called The Culture Map. It's by Erin Myers, and it's about decoding how people think, lead, and get things done across different cultures. And so this really taught me, because my boss is from a different country, I think, and like I work for an international company, so I talk to people sometimes from China, Middle East, Europe, US, Asia, and it's very interesting, like understanding like how to communicate, how do people work across different countries or different cultures. Like, for example, my boss comes from a country that's like a high context country, and we as US are more of a low context. So that means like with a low context, whatever we say, like say like, okay, I need you to do this, 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 and this, those are the things you have to get done. And like we say everything, where in a high context country, you have to read between the words. So I'll give an example. My boss told me, hey, determine who needs to be on this meeting. So I'm like, all right, I looked it up, figured out, okay, these are the people who need to be on this meeting. This is who the people we need to meet with. And he goes, why haven't you set up the meetings yet? And so I learned that, okay, when he tells me, like, that was reading between the lines, like I should have read more. It's like, okay, if he wants me to determine who needs to be on these meetings, I need to go ahead and set up these meetings with these people. So that's kind of the difference between that. Also, just understanding like their work habits, different things like that. So definitely recommend The Culture Map. If you're not a big reader, Dax Shepard on the Armchair Expert had her on as a podcast, on his podcast. Her name's Erin Meyer. So definitely recommend that. Other book is, and this is what someone at work recommended to me, it's called Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands. And it's essentially, and this is when we used to travel, but if you're traveling to like the Middle East, how do you act in the Middle East? How do you act as a woman in the Middle East? How do you act going to China? Like you don't generally shake hands in China, like you bow. And it's just different ways of like looking through. It's okay, like I'm going to China. This is what the culture is. This is what they expect. Stuff like that. So it's kind of similar in a manner in the books, but yeah. So those are the 2 books I recommend for sure. I would read The Culture Map, and this is what the book that they have everyone at Netflix read before they start is The Culture Map. So people can learn how to communicate and work with people from different cultures, especially if you're working for like a big corporation like I do. You are, and it's even like working from people from different parts of the country. Like there's still different cultures in different parts of our country. So it's been like a really good book for me to understand how to communicate.
It sounds very good. I will say everybody I work with, they're not a different culture. I mean, they're a little bit more country, but that's not necessarily a different culture. But if I ever move to a more corporate, I would really want to read that, because I think the biggest we can wrap up with this, but one of the biggest hurdles in working in corporate
America.
in general, that's, I don't know why I pause like that. In corporate America, is communication. I think communication, and same with any relationship you have too, communication is going to always be a hurdle. So if you're able to learn how to communicate better with people and how to understand people, that's going to make a huge difference.
Yep. So that's all we have about what we recommend to our boss babes working in the office. We'll do another one on the boss babes who want to be their own boss.
Yeah, that I can talk for hours. I've been
Well, we talked for hours.
stuff.
I will say I told Mal this idea because we had like a heart-to-heart the other day about some stuff going on at work with me.
Yeah.
And we were kind of like talking about it, and I'm like, like we should make like an episode of like advice. And Mal's like, I don't have any advice. I don't know what to talk about. And look, we've been over an hour.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, you have stuff to talk about, Mal.
That's true. That's true. All right, y'all. Thanks everybody for listening. Make sure that you rate, review, subscribe, share with all your friends. If you have any other tips or advice or anything like that, please reach out and tell us. If you have any questions on anything, reach out and tell us. Join our Facebook group. We're going to be doing a lot more talking and communicating in the Facebook group. Join the Facebook group. I think that's it. Make sure you do our donation this month. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.